we carry on?
Carry on. Yeah, it is carry on, isn't it?
So now the next item, next committee rather, is the Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Finance Committee. First item is to elect a chair.
I'd like to propose Councillor Wiles.
Yeah, I second that.
If you would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone to second that? I'll second that.
Mm.
Anyone in favour?
We're all in
favour.
Vote for yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right, so thank you. Apologies for absence.
No apologies have been received.
Okay. 3 is direct declaration of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Anything? No. Public participation, a 20-minute session set aside for members of the public to make representations in respect of business on the agenda. Any representations? There's no one present, so I'm assuming not. Item 5 is first draft of budget for 24-25. Members to receive and consider a report from the RFO including the first draft of the budget, proposed budget for 24-25. Comments and feedback welcomed. RFO recommends that members consider if there are any changes required to the draft budget, and the FG&P committee meet in December to further consider and approve 24-25 budgets. Assume that means Tollbridge Fund committee. But if budgets cannot be improved in December, then the meeting is scheduled for mid-January to approve the 24-25 budgets prior to the preset demand deadline. So we have attachment 1, which is the Tollbridge Fund budget. Do you want to just talk through this, Karen, as before?
Yeah. We have 2 budgets, the Guildhall budget and the Sandwich Town Tollbridge Fund budget. Since sending this out, I've been working on the forecast more closely this year, and I've had to make a couple of changes. So I've made them to the forecast, I've not changed the budget. If I can find which one I'm talking about. The Tollbridge Fund budget. I've not changed anything in the actual budget, but I've been thinking about, and I'd like you to note that the most important factors are how many more grants we're giving this year. We're already slightly over the grants budget. If we give more grants, we'll be in a situation. And I have decreased the property asset management forecast because the asset manager role is being delayed, and I think the greatest spend will be next year. We don't know what the full extent of that is yet, but I've sort of delayed that spend a bit. I've put this contribution to Guildhall account as the budget, unfortunately. I wanted to save money on this, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be the case. And that means that the transfer from reserves forecast for this year has gone up. The property rent has been just realigned slightly, but it's not changed hugely from my last forecast. The budget brought forward is 8,400, which is the likely level of budget we will need at the end of the year, otherwise we'll be in financial problems. But then we'll need to draw down immediately and then move money back to the Guildhall account. That's what happens in April every year. So the level of transfer from reserves is set at a lower rate for next year, but that's only because I've increased it this year. the other amounts of income, property rent, we're not expecting anything to increase unless we have a review of those properties. And if that takes place, then we could possibly have an increase here. But at the moment, I don't know anything, so I've kept it at the same level.
So Karen, do we know if any of those have actually got reviews due next year?
I think they are overdue.
They are overdue. They should have been done a couple of years ago.
One of the leases ran out last year, and it's been on a rolling lease ever since.
Some people's holding over.
So that's
And that the
overdue
new rent
review.
have to be negotiated with them.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. The Guildhall car park income, we should have received more than 8.8 thousand, but Dover District Council found another £2,000 or £3,000 after they made the calculation. It was too late to pay it to us, so we're going to be paid that next year. But of course we've got less car park now because of cattle market surgery. So I'm predicting 10,000, which is the lowest I've set the budget at. The other items of income are quite small, so they're not very significant really. And yeah, so the main discussion points are the grants budgets, the property asset management, the drawdowns from reserves, and rent reviews.
Just on, if you go back to the expenditure to date on the grants, I think you've got about 14,000 or something, have you? 14,000.
That's at the end of September.
That's the end of September, and then we've
And then
approved
we've since approved
Gaze and
£6,000.
to Gaze and
Yeah.
Salt, so it's taken to 21,000, and
We
there are,
have another
10,000.
in the area of £10,000 to, but people are applying very early now,
They are.
and they're applying for events and things that are happening next year, and some of these organisations might be happy to receive the money in April.
I think on that we need a report about the criteria, the way we allocate grants, I think we need a kind of filtering system, so we only get grant applications at Tollbridge which have been through that filtering, so we're not wasting our time.
So just a couple of sort of helicopter view things around this. I think we as a group have got to take responsibility for managing this trust better, but it can't be done overnight. So the assets, the working group will be looking at aspects of this, and I think this will probably take us all of next year to really get it to where we might be much more comfortable with it. But we do need to remain in control of things. So the grants is an area that we have a responsibility through a statement of purpose that clearly sets those out. And I think we shouldn't shy away from that, but that's my personal view in terms of how we deal with this. Similarly, we just need to remember that actually the drawdown isn't an income in effect. All we're doing is shrinking the overall fund, and we can keep on doing that, but at some point it will go beyond it being sustainable.
I think one of the problems is we've been also giving grants this year out of next year's budget.
I know.
This has happened a few times now, so when next year's come, it's already, a load of it's gone.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do, but actually it's difficult then to make a difference in management.
Yeah.
We could make a radical decision not to pay out any grants at all.
You could.
Just say we're reviewing the criteria.
We've exhausted it.
Because we keep being flooded with.
Sandwich and Blue would be very happy.
We need proper criteria about who these groups are and what their finances are and what their status is.
Just the other thing I was going to mention was about the maintenance, because we have got like a maintenance lease on this property from Dover District Council, And the town clerk did tell me, she said there is a lot of overdue
Yeah.
maintenance.
Every 3
Right
years,
on this
there's
property.
quite a bit of work we need to do on this.
So I don't think there has been any like annual assessment done. I think it was undertaken by the previous town sergeant, and although apparently a list was drawn up for the previous year, none of the work was actually undertaken.
The Finance and Assets Working Group is looking at all the leases. And one of the key things they're looking at is the DDC lease for this building and whether we can renegotiate it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good point, Paul, that in effect we're inheriting a legacy of
We are.
problems.
We
And we're
are.
having, we can either ignore them or we try and tackle them.
Exactly. But we must be observant that this is something that could come up and stab us in the back.
Yeah.
If, say, for instance, there was, God forbid, major roofing
Yes.
works.
Yeah.
The town clerk's told me that apparently the guttering,
Yeah.
she said that could be £40,000 for the renewal of the guttering.
There is every 5 years you get a surveyor that looks around. It used to be Barrow's, and then it's a chappie at Margate. So that's a building surveyor. He comes, but unfortunately, like I say, he's most probably surveyed it, but none of the works he suggested has been carried out.
No, it hasn't. No.
We need to make some quite tough decisions. I
Yeah,
think.
we need to get it surveyed again.
So anything else on this draft budget?
Well, I'm disappointed that we're again looking at the huge drawdown and upping the drawdown to £90,000. And I think a number of points have been made, whether it's the £20,000 borrowed from Monk's Wall, whether it's the maintenance work that's not been, a proper listing and a proper evaluation of the problem that this council has picked up, I think would be a useful exercise, and maybe that's something that the working party should include as part of their work scope, to be able to report back, because it's an enormous problem really, and it makes us have to take really hard decisions. And I think maybe there is some solace in the fact that hopefully by next year the Maddox charity will be established, and that might be able to backfill some of the grants that sandwich organisations like
Yes,
Sandwich
that's
in
true.
Bloom.
It's another source, isn't
It's
it?
another source of
Yeah.
income, but it's not, and hopefully it will be available in 24-25.
Yes.
So I'm all for cutting the level of grants for next year to zero, to be honest.
Karen, has the Tollbridge Fund or the council ever had a capital budget where you spread capital works over
Not as far as I'm
15,
aware.
25 years?
No.
So that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Well,
Rather than all
They
coming in a single
do
year.
to me seem to have an approach of taking out public work loans to
Yeah.
cover these things.
Yeah.
A capital budget makes sense, it would, because you spread the load.
Did we
It's like having a sinking fund.
didn't we years ago have it like a charitable status and reduction on what rents we used to pay to Dover District Council?
Yeah, we've got a charitable discount
Yeah, we
on
have, haven't we?
business rates, for
Yeah.
the building.
We had to pay £40,000, didn't we? Quite a large amount, one year, about 3 years ago, because suddenly Dover District Council realised that I think it was to do with the CAB, I'm not quite sure, but suddenly we lost our charitable business.
Yeah, I wrote to them and fought for that to be reinstated, and it was reinstated, so we didn't have to pay
Yeah,
those.
that's all right then. We've got to be careful, haven't we?
So I don't know if we're paying full council tax on the Maddox property.
Yeah, we are.
Even if it's empty, you have to.
Yeah, but as it's owned by the council, shouldn't it not be reduced?
Not yet.
If not until it's
Not yet.
registered as a charity.
No. Hasn't changed. Hasn't changed.
Unfortunately.
So do we have a proposal on this budget? Are we happy to take it forward as it
I
is?
propose that we accept it as it is, and
Did you want to have a look at the Guildhall budget as well? Because they're both tied in together.
Yeah, sure.
yeah, that'd be helpful.
Just before I do feel we shouldn't lose this point about perhaps not giving any grants next year. And I think we need to make a decision about that. Is this not the place to do that?
No.
Oh.
Is it not?
Well, I
We
don't
can
know, if
propose-
Cemetery Bloom don't get no
propose
grants, you get no flowers.
decision.
We can recommend to
But they can
the
get somewhere.
STBF.
They won't get no flowers, they've got no money.
There might be,
And we don't-
we might
we don't
promote
make
this
any-
by then.
That would be in charge for them.
We could make a recommendation, we reduce it to 10,000.
we can make a recommendation to the Towbridge Fund trustees that no grants are made this year.
I mean, I'm reluctant to do that.
Yes,
well,
because
that's fine.
there are some
Yeah.
very good organisations
Yeah,
around
and-
who make the
And I
town.
wouldn't do it off the cuff. We should do it approaching it in a way of
Yeah.
why do we want to set it at a certain figure,
Exactly.
and what's the factors that are making us make that decision. And then we make a decision rather than say let's go for 10, let's go for 0, or
Well, still full
whatever.
council.
We need to look at it. I agree.
Have we got the time to look at it though? That's the only trouble.
I think the
How much
criteria
time
need
have
to be revamped before we make any grant.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're suggesting that we should stop giving grants?
With the town clerk, I believe I did discuss this with the town clerk, and she said that she wanted to sort of put the brakes on until she had actually, she said she was undertaking a review, so she wanted to draw up some documentation so that when it actually came to council, all the boxes have been ticked.
Yeah.
So if they're registered charity,
So
it's
my,
ticked. If they're
my proposal is that we recommend to the Tolbridge Fund that the criteria for grant applications be revamped.
Yeah.
That we have a proper, diligent application process.
Yeah.
And until such time as that is in place, we pay out no grants, and that the budget for next year be reduced to £10,000.
And we have already the budget for this year. We have now just exceeded it. So actually, that's a fact.
Yeah.
So we are at the point where we can say actually we have used up this year's amount. So we've got therefore through to March of next year to get this right. Criteria
That's
plus
right. Yeah,
bits.
that gives us time.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's my proposal.
I'll second that.
So we're talking about a deadline of March, by
Yeah.
which time we've got these criteria
Yeah.
sorted
Yeah.
out. Because that would be helpful to be able
Yes.
to tell all those
Yeah.
disappointing
Yeah,
punters
that
out
gives
there.
us time to
Yeah,
make sure they're properly
Yeah.
in place.
agreed.
Definitely.
Seconder for that?
Oh, so did the
So
finance-
I just
proposal,
want to make clear that I have been in touch with several, all these grant organisations, organisations that are applying for grants, and they believe their grant is going to be reviewed at the November meeting.
And
So-
what's the total amount for those?
Around about £10,000.
Perfect.
How is that perfect?
This is for next year.
No, these are the grants that are applying at the November, and I've told them that their grants will be considered at the November meeting.
They've been stockpiled for a
They've
few
been
months.
stockpiled for a couple of
Yeah.
months, yeah.
But some of them are for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But some of them presumably are for events that
Yes.
will take place
Next year.
in April or May.
Yeah.
yeah.
But their argument would be that they need to know now that they're
Yes, of
getting.
course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be very awkward. So have we got the muscle to do this?
But yeah, we need to make a stop. We need to draw a line in the sand, don't we? If we can't continue with a process if we know the process isn't fit for
It's
purpose.
bust. It's bust.
I think a holding letter to those applicants
Yeah.
saying we are reviewing the criteria and the process, and we will be in touch once that's in
If I could
place.
just slightly modify it, Colin, I would think we still need to bring, so we've got the bids in, so why aren't we transparent in terms of bringing them to the meeting? We should bring them to November's meeting, if that's the intention and that's what's been communicated, we shouldn't go back and say, actually, we've changed our mind. I think we should see in front of us what those bids are, and then we can make an informed decision, because actually, the fact is we haven't got the money this year. We might want to think about there may be some need to look at some of those for next year, but equally we might say we've looked at them all, and we still need to move forward to March and get the criteria right. But at the moment we haven't got the list in front of us as councillors.
We can't pay any, can we? Because we're overdrawn already.
Yeah, agree.
But bring them to the meeting.
Yeah.
So sorry, Karen, are these groups expecting the money to be paid in this financial year?
They're not expecting anything to be paid yet. They're just expecting their grants to be reviewed
Have a
at the
decision
to be
November
looked at.
meeting.
Have a
Yeah.
decision.
So we can make a decision to say, sorry, we're reviewing the criteria and we'll let you know when it's in place.
Yeah.
And then if we require further information at that stage, we will
Yeah.
let you know.
But they'll say we can't run an event
Yes.
there.
That's right.
That's right.
They will say that. And they may have reason to say that.
It's not an easy job, is it?
No, no,
Somebody's got
Well,
to
we
do it.
inherited a carryover
Yeah.
of a significant amount
Yes.
this year.
Yeah.
7,000 was one grant alone, wasn't
And
it?
Landwoods, who are selling property at worth over 2 million.
2 million, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
The bid was for 20,000.
So their bid was for 14, we reduced it to 7.
Anyway,
So I'm a bit confused in
so the,
actually voting on just now.
so the proposal is that we bring all those outstanding bids to the November Tollbridge Fund meeting.
Yep.
And look at them, but then write to them and say we are reviewing the criteria and we will be in touch with you in due course once the Tollbridge Fund has agreed the new criteria, and to let you know that we are reducing the budget to £10,000.
I think that is the proposal we're taking to the meeting.
Yes.
We have to have a proper discussion at STBF about whether the proposal is accepted or not. So if we're proposing from this group, that's what goes into the proposal. If that's what we're
Yeah,
accepting.
so are we agreeing that, and that we put in place proper criteria by March and we reduce the budget to £10,000?
That's what I thought
Yeah.
was missing from,
That was my original
Yeah.
proposal.
provided you've got all three of those in the
And the
proposal,
issue
yes.
could be that you end up having spent all the money before the year even starts. In
Yes.
terms of commitments,
Indeed, yeah, that is the case, yeah.
Because you can, if, let's say, an event wants 5,000, you could say we'll give you 2,000,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is what we did with manuals.
Yeah.
And others.
Okay.
So that's the proposal. All,
Yeah, yeah, I'll second that.
all those in favour? You clear on that?
Somebody is.
Okay, you want to put up the Guildhall budget as well? Did you say you wanted the Guildhall?
I'm happy to review this
Okay,
in
together.
December if you want,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
if you want, I can talk through the changes. Whatever's preferred.
You want to talk us through it?
That's right, yeah. So the Scottish one, is it?
So the main changes to the Guildhall budget then are an overall increase in the salaries due to being placed on NAP scale points, new staff structure, and new employees such as part-time fixed-term assistant clerk, a fixed-term assets officer, and part-time reception administration assistant. We've calculated the HR and payroll services to be around £1,500 during the next financial year. This would be split between the three accounts. 42% is charged to the Guildhall account because 42% of staff salaries are paid from the Guildhall account. The repairs and maintenance budget has been reduced, but if further projects are required, then drawdown would be required during the year.
Could I just ask, what website is that referring to? Which website? There's two. There's the museum and archives, and there's also the town council website.
Sorry, website, I don't know.
Yeah, it says IT expenses,
IT
including
expenses.
website.
Oh,
3 or 4 lines
IT,
above.
STC IT expenses tab. That is a tab on my Sandwich Town Council budget, which lists IT expenditure for next year.
Yeah.
If I go back to that. We have estimated money
Okay, so
for
it's the STC
website.
website.
IT support, booking system, finance system, and a small budget for other things. That's split between the town council and the toll bridge fund,
Okay.
according to the various usage.
Okay.
So savings.
Well, sorry, I thought you had 10,500 reserved for the IT system.
That's a separate budget. That is for hardware, and that's in the town council budget. Yeah, and that will be brought forward and added to. That's it includes a new budget for this year, so that programme continues. But that, it's reached quite a high level now. So I think it was a 4-year programme, and we're about on the 4th year. So there is enough money for new hardware if needed. We had a Guildhall promotional budget. I've reduced it to £1,000. If anyone has any promotional projects, please let us know, and we can review that.
What is a promotional project?
It's to do with promoting the Guildhall as a venue, mainly, so marketing.
Magazines.
Used a magazine, didn't you?
Yeah. Used a big magazine, didn't we, for weddings?
The Guildhall room hire income budget's been set at £42,000, based on the income received to date, and the forward forecast for this year. We're hoping that we can increase that, but we haven't got any plans to change anything at the moment. So we're assuming the same groups are booked in for next year, but there's another item on this agenda about fees and charges. So we might be able to change this budget. And the investment. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. So contribution's been slightly decreased to the Guildhall, and that was because the town council budget was tight.
Okay. So do we have a proposal on this set of budgets? Are you happy to?
I think it's very sensible and very,
Pass them forward?
very prudent that we are sensible with this budget. And we don't make.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned that you may have been a bit over ambitious in places, like reducing the insurance from 22,000 this year to 13,600.
That is see the 21,000. That's because we paid one invoice for insurance, and that invoice came out of the Guildhall account, and then we had money back from the town council account. So the true cost was about 13,000, or just under. That's the true cost. That's why the previous budget was 12,000.
Right, but if we're using the forecast, which is driving the increase drawdown on the toll bridge fund, because it's in here. Maybe it's something I just need to think about a bit more.
And also, is that the insurance? Is it the property?
Yes.
So
Everything.
I would just flag up that from personal experience that property insurance has jumped dramatically this year, and it's not about shopping badly. It actually, I found it's gone up significantly. So if we're using last year as a judge and going up by 10%, you might find it's significantly more than that. So it's worth checking.
Yeah, I was going to say on the insurance, or just to butt in, I know previously we'd negotiated a deal that we were to pay a set amount for a number of years. So I don't know if that's the case or whether that could be checked for the insurance, because we were changing. I remember a year or two back we were changing insurance companies, or we were thinking of doing that, and we were offered a 3-year deal. That's what I remember. I don't know if that's correct.
That, I'm sure that is correct. I'm wondering whether those 3 years are up next year.
Quite
We need to
possibly.
go- We need to go
Quite
out to
possibly,
tender
but yeah,
again,
if that
so,
could possibly be
Yeah.
checked,
yeah,
that'd
we
be
may
really
need to
helpful,
go out to
please.
tender.
Yeah.
That's
So,
what
One
I
of the
think we
changes
do.
impact in forms of
That's-
insurance.
I would, sorry, before we approve, this, I also think we need to do a kind of a bottom-up estimate of the property repairs, because, we've got the budget there from 40,000 this year to 19,000 next year. And I know we haven't expended the money, but I think that we haven't done the repair work because of the staffing situation and so forth. So, if anything, we've got a backlog of 25,000 from this year, and we should be doing 40,000 for next year. So that instead of it being 19,000, it should be 65,000 type of thing.
Yeah, but we can apply for Heritage Lottery grants, which we did for the Fisher Gate, and I think we also, I'm not sure about this building, but it's there, isn't it? It's, Heritage Lottery grants, so we can look at grants.
One of the roles of the assets officer will be to look at that funding for the national.
Yeah, because the other lady, wasn't she, the previous museum, she was looking for £1 million, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Grants.
So we have a proposal to take this budget forward, perhaps subject to the insurance and the property repairs and maintenance being further investigated. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yes. Oh, I proposed it, didn't I?
Seconder. All those in favour? Okay. So the next item is the payroll, which I think we're reaching the same decision as STC, is that correct? So which is to agree it in principle, but to defer to the next meeting with a full covering report. So all those in seconder for that? All those in favour? Yep. So the next item is the Guildhall fees, which is attachment 3. So the town clerk is asking us to consider whether these should increase for next year. So the budget, Karen, doesn't include any increases
No.
in income, okay.
No.
So what's the feeling, 5% increase or?
Can I just give a little bit of history on this, sorry, beforehand? Because previously, that's why the whole property was all completely redecorated and refurbished. And the previous administration, just to give you a bit of history, not to tell you what you should be doing, drastically increased the charges. And I don't know if Councillor Franklin remembers, and a number of organisations actually walked away. And in fact, one organisation, perhaps I should actually be declaring an interest in this, because I'm a member of the History Society. So I'd like to declare an interest. Obviously they make use of the Guildhall, but the History Society had to dramatically put up their membership fees just to remain in being. But they said if there was additional very high increases, then the History Society might have to actually close down, because it hasn't got large reserves to keep going. So if the fees continue to climb extraordinary amounts, then these smaller organisations won't be able to continue to rent from us. That's just
So
the
I think,
history.
I think that's helpful. When I look at the sheet in front of me, I feel like it's in a bit of a vacuum, because they are what they are, because that's what's printed on the page. But what I don't know is whether, when they were last reviewed, what I don't know is competitively what the rates look like against other similar buildings. I also don't know about the actual take-up. So you've provided some of that, Paul, which is really helpful, but we've got an asset here.
Yeah, we have.
Is it being overly subscribed in some areas of, for example, weddings? And is that because we're charging too little, too much? All those questions. I think you should do a benchmarking exercise. It can be light touch. You can look at some things that are the big earners, see if we pitched it right. But I can't approve this or not. I can't say whether it goes up 10% or comes down. I really just can't. It's a sheet.
Yeah.
Sorry,
There's also the issue of whether we're talking about commercial you know, a wedding is a commercial offer, whereas if it's the History Society, I'm not sure what their legal status is, but clearly they're a community group who should perhaps be charged less.
What I don't understand is the actual cost to us of hosting one of these things. If we have if we're hosting a class in the evening and we're getting £65 for it, and we're having to pay overtime to the caretakers, which is costing £68, you know, we're losing money.
I don't think they're on overtime if they're on afternoons, maybe.
Well, whatever, you know, what is the actual marginal cost to us if the caretakers have got to come in just to be here to provide building security? You know, we're losing out on normal time when they could be painting or whatever the activity is. That's the way I see it.
Because I think they work on a time off in lieu basis, and so that does mean that, as you say, they're not going to be here for other activities. And then, of course, we have the problem in the past, very large amounts of additional hours have been worked. Hopefully that's resolved now.
So there's one thing that stands out for me is the wedding. Elf room, £500 for a Friday, Saturday. Does that include the courtroom in that sharp fee, 500?
They wedding venue in the courtroom.
So you get the whole building.
Yeah.
500 seems low to me.
I don't know that. I know when I did a wedding, you pay per room. So you have the courtroom, and then sometimes you'll go to the Bell Hotel. So it could be the ballroom, courtroom, like I did. I had a courtroom, jury room. I had the whole building for the day.
Includes the kitchen as well.
Yeah, I had the caterers in.
And it's all separate.
So it's all separate.
if you
Depends
use
on
it.
what their package is.
Yes. Can I just say that when, with the previous chief executive, I remember at a meeting that she told us that she'd done a review of competitor venues, and these were the figures that she came to.
That's correct.
So I don't know when that review was done, or whether it's still
21.
around. But if it is around, then presumably somebody
It's a good
take
starting
a huge
point.
amount of time to update it.
Do you know the estimate?
I think that's 2021 from my recollection.
I haven't seen it myself, but I'm sure we can try and search.
But it's a very good starting point.
There's a big jump though.
My recommendation is I don't think we can make a decision on this because it's impossible. And really it's something I think the assets officer should be, it's part of their role, isn't it, to look at income from assets.
Yeah, I propose that we
so I
defer
think
it.
I think we can't make any
We
increases for
keep
next year.
referring to the assets officer, but this is a fantasy, isn't it? I
Right.
mean, when do we expect to have an assets officer in post?
I think we've had a number of applications.
Have we? And what is the process? Where are we in it?
We currently we didn't have very many applications from the initial first advertisement, but some more have come in since then. So we're hoping to in December to actually call to interview. But then obviously whoever is successful at interview would have to give a month's notice.
Yeah.
So you're really looking in real terms, you're looking at probably I would say mid-January.
Or later?
February.
February.
So I think in real terms we can't make any increases on this for the budget.
So it'd be for next financial year in any case. So I
Maybe-
would be
Maybe.
yeah maybe I'd be happy to tentatively look at it in the new year if I've got the capacity to do so. If I've got the previous report as well that obviously set out who was looked at. So I'll make that offer. I might have to withdraw it. I think I've got too much on my plate, but I think somebody needs to look and it's not very difficult to go out and look at some benchmarking figures.
We could have a paranormal event and discover it that way.
Yes.
We could, just have a paranormal event.
So I propose deferring this item for Councillor Chuka if he's able to actually do some benchmarking on it, and also for feedback from the town clerk as to the progress of the assets manager role.
Yeah.
And so no increases on these figures?
No increases,
for next
keep them
year's
as they
budget.
are at this present time.
Is that, do we have a second?
Yeah, I said,
All those in favour? Thank you very much. So that, I think, concludes the meeting. Next meeting is Monday the 11th of December. Thank you very much.
Thank you.